everyone. So this is going to be part 3, and I've got this on my head because I feel my head is pounding, which is interesting. I want to see if it eases after we feel like we need to get some stuff stated. Hopefully you enjoyed part 2, and I'm going to dive into some of those cards. What I really feel the problem with this case is that doesn't matter how far or shallow you look into it, there's always different narratives going on, and there's always questions and gaps left, which is why it had so much coverage. People have tried to get involved. There's people trying to bring justice to the case, and I think that could have easily been eliminated even when the police had messed things up. So for example, to me, things like the phone was not looked at for DNA because apparently someone had, seen it on the bench or picked it up, put it on the bench, or it was on the bench, but still take it, because it doesn't mean that everyone is going to hold it from the same angle. Close off the scenes as a crime scene. Yes, it could be a missing person, but you've got indicators of a phone left, the dog left, and also the harness that was apparently on the floor. Some people were saying it was left at the gate. Was there a lead on it? No one knows if there was a lead on it. Some say there must have been a lead on it. The thing about the phone was put down on the bench as one of the narratives was that the phone would have been put down on the bench while Nicola puts the harness on the dog. So does that mean that's where she ends her walk with the dog? Then what happened? But for me, one big indicator on this is that if you've got a dog and you slip and you fall into something, and I'm talking logic here so that I can try and, in my logic, I'm a bit more direct. If you have a dog and you slip and fall, that dog's going in after you. Even when dogs are scared, they'll start yelping and crying, and then suddenly they might just jump in. And let's say it was scared and it didn't want to, or for whatever reason, not that it didn't want to, but it was really, really scared of the water. It would have stayed there yelping and barking for its owner, okay? So that doesn't make sense to me. It's just not making sense. I think the dog was, one, either it ran away, but it was somewhere else where it didn't see what actually happened, and I'm not saying she fell in the water. Number 2, somebody ushered the dog away, and that's why I also wanted to know if the car was taken from the school to nearby. But what I understand is the car is always left parked at the school, and then the walk is done with Willow and possibly a coffee. Where is this tennis ball? Was a tennis ball taken? Was a tennis ball not taken? It's no good that that's all someone says. When I say someone, I mean like a friend says, no, the tennis ball would not have been taken, but then there's a camera of at the home, the tennis ball being in someone's hand, in the partner's hand, as if he's walking to the car. That does not mean that he put it in the car, and maybe he did put it in the car. What's the proof the tennis ball was taken? Where is that tennis ball? Where is the car keys? The Fitbit thing is another thing that's just not making sense. Some people, when I try to look at this, not looking at other psychic and intuitive readers, so that I don't mix up anything I get. The Fitbit 4 days before was not connected. That seems intentional for me. That doesn't make sense if you've got a Fitbit. I would say a couple of days, maybe you just it doesn't connect or something. And then some people say for 2 weeks after it was working. How is that possible? And it was measuring a heart rate. Some people say 4 days after and the heart rate was being measured, but then that's because of the water tapping against it. Okay, that's fine. So what you can do with that when you want to eliminate the public not understanding things and you messing up a certain thing. I'm talking about the authorities that would look into it, i.e. the police, state that the exact thing, that at X time the heart rate went up, but then it died, but then it was at a certain temperature, and that would indicate this kind of temperature around. It's not the temperature of a human touch skin. Clarify. Where is that Fitbit? There's the thing about the calls. Okay, so why are we starting calls and trailing of calls and text messages at 8:52 a.m.? Is that because that's when she leaves the house? And so what? What about the night before? What happened? What is the log around the phone the night before? There's so many things that is not filled, and there's also channels that are covering crime stories, and each one has a different narrative as well. And they're trying their best, but there's so many gaps that people are trying to fill in the gaps, and this is a big problem because something's not making sense. And I'll give you one example. There's a very large platform that looks at crime stories, and there was, you know, when apparently they were saying on Twitter, from what I understood of this part, that they were saying on Twitter that people were taking to Twitter and, I don't know, videoing or doing some campaign. I don't know exactly what it was. I wanted to keep a bit clear. So I think the chief investigator, which was a woman, and the constable or whoever her partner is, I can get this for you if you've not seen it, I'm sure you've seen it, came on telly and said, listen, we're still looking for Nicola, and this is what we've done, this is what we're going to do, and basically we appreciate you not causing more havoc or whatever was stated. And she went through, like, for example, they used to take Willow, but they'd take the harness off at the gates because Willow would run and then she'd get caught in stuff. And so they'd put it back on the gate. What's interesting about that is some people have understood it as taking off at the gate and actually putting it down. And then when she leaves and she goes to the gate and picks it up and puts it back on Willow. I understand it that, you know, you get there, but you take the harness off, but you're carrying it with you. But you can see how those two different things can give a different context, because that crime investigator, or the one that has the channel, said she's lying because she said it's taken off at the gate. So how did it get to the bench? And she doesn't know what she's stating. Now, I'm not defending that police woman because she also came across as very defensive, and it's not a way to talk to public. There has been a mess up. You know, why was the bench not closed off? Why was the river not closed off? Why was the phone not collected? I don't know where the phone went, but it didn't say there was DNA samples on the phone or checked. They found the body. Did they come through and said, we've checked the clothes for DNA, further DNA or anything? No. Did we, I think some people are saying that there was nothing on her body. Some people are saying there was a bit of bruising. The death was a drowning, okay, because they found a certain amount of water. Well, she was apparently placed in the water, whether she fell in or not, she was eventually placed in the water, or that's where her body was. So whether she's dead or alive, she's going to get water in her lungs. Did you take that water? If you notice, it was like the water's in her lungs. Did you take that water and test it? Is it from the river? Because that is very simple to test, which is likely to be. But also, I think you can test how much water was in there and how much it would make sense to be in the body and the decomposition of the body after so many days. Is it tying up? The other thing that I also wanted to mention was, what was the other thing I wanted to mention around that? Oh Lord. there was something else around, yes, a body when it falls into water and, you know, it drowns, death, the results of death, 3 to 4 days it floats. That water, let's say, because she drowned because it was freezing, so gasping for air, accident drowned because it's freezing, 3-4 days her body would be at the top. And you're not going to tell me where she fell in at the bench, there's no tide. It takes time to get round the bend, and there's actually a bend where really it's likely her body might get caught in, but let's say she went in the middle and then there was that drop and then she was going, and it was 1.5 miles away in reeds that I believe was also quite shallow that she was found in. And so how can police investigators, another thing that's going around is, did they have dogs, cadaver dogs? And apparently there was, and they weren't found. Aside from that, there was a investigator who stepped away from the police and is, you know, a high-profile investigator known for his work. I'm not naming any names on purpose, but this is probably, you'll know this, who didn't find anything. Went with a team of 4 and dogs and didn't find anything. And surprisingly, after 23 days, which is a 5, remember I mentioned about 7 being a big number for me, 5 and 9 comes through as well. Her body was found. Now, logically, what I'm getting is, and I've tried to look at it because I wanted to come from an angle, these accidents happen, and sometimes there's little niggles where we can't explain it because it's about destiny. But there's so many gaps and there's not been testing. But if there'd been testing, if there'd been a proper process followed, and if there wasn't gaps, I'm sure that this would not have come up this way. And that's why there's different narratives and stories. And then at the beginning as well, you know, not only the disclosure of premenopause problems or alcohol, that to even be stated, to me, I don't know, there's just, that's the thing that I heard that actually got me to listen to what on earth has happened, that there's a missing woman, 45 years old. And then when I saw her picture, I instantly felt her energy. Now, I've been having this bad headache for a couple of days, so I'm just going to go through a few things. It's probably not going to be in order, and there's going to be stuff going all over the place. So, I'm not going to go into everything because you probably know, and there's questions all over the place. But, you know, even like, did they test the alcohol in the system? And if they did, because I think they would have, you know, so that they have a narrative at the end for the inquest as well. Why not come out and say, and there was no alcohol in her system? Because you've put out a narrative in the beginning, do something to cover that. If it wasn't the case, do something, you know, in honor of a soul or to respect a person. The dog not going in the water is one of the biggest things for me. The dog not going in the water, and then the dog apparently being found running between the bench and the gate, is she either went ran towards, you know, when dogs wander off a bit, but like they come back in a couple of minutes, they don't start wandering off for too long, and they come back and she's not found her. That's possible. Or someone, which is intuitively what I'm getting, is tried to get the dog moved further away a little bit, and then once things were done, then the dog could have been running back and forth between the bench. One thing I do want to say, I'm going to say some names. These names are just coming to me. It could be just energies around her. It could be around the time. It could be energies that are, you know, even been in the inquest. It doesn't mean they were related to the death or in any way. Take it as is. Some words, some signs that I got as well. Nicola was a Libra, okay, and she was life path 1. I was going to look at it, but they're really good leaders. And in general, on that date, the astrology, there was nothing significant where there's a planet of unexpected change or something like that that collides with maybe in relationships or you know, like a retrograde or something. Her partner has strong Libra aspects as well, and Libras are all about harmony and balance, and they're all about also this sensuality with Libra as well, but like they will flow just not to cause any conflict or drama, which sometimes can mean at the expense of your own identity, or you can be so identity focused too. And her North Node is Libra as well, which is interesting, and that could be an increased desire for the perfect relationship. There could be a bit of self-obsession, but in general, there's kindness. North Node in Libra can have trust issues as well, and there can be a loss of sense of self, or it could be a questioning when you give too much to please, or, you know, like I said, just to keep, I don't want any conflict, don't want any arguments, so yes, I agree with you, all right? Or it could be the other way, where you are a bit also manipulative, focused on self. Now, these elements are interesting because in the first read, if you remember, I was like, was there a lack of confidence? Did something come up? And some of this actually came up in the first read. And you might have been thinking, where is she going? I didn't even, you know, I channel and I'm not really, afterwards I was like, when I popped on the live, I was like, what is happening here? You know, when a card comes up that I'm not very at ease with, because I get either intuitive hit what it is, or through the meaning of the card. Now, I tend to get, the way I normally read is I'll get the message and I use the cards to confirm, not the cards to confirm me. And so I need to stay on that note as well. So remember, the signs I'm going to give is just basically signs I've got, okay? There was something about the Hierophant I wanted to touch base on as well. So I don't know if she found out something that was maybe related to work or money or something, all right? Or related to, when I did the first reading, I could feel that there was some trouble, something around the relationship, but there's also something around the work life or money, something there as well. So I felt that there was different parameters, and you could see in that reading that I felt and have been saying that she was going through a bit of a change, and she needed, I think she was going through a bit of a chapter change where, you know, you reach not reach a milestone in your life, but you change as an individual and you start to see what's aligning, what's not aligning. But I really think that there was already some brewing of some issues, which there always is in our lives and our personal life. And I didn't want to be in that. I don't want to read on that. I want to get to what it is without causing additional drama or negative energies. And that's why you probably feel I'm a bit conservative reader. I'll read the card, describe what I'm getting with it, but maybe in the further parts I dive into it a bit deeper, because if a further confirmation comes up, then I need to say. So like I said, just take some of the things that I've said as characters, and it's going to be obvious because I'm getting names that could be people that were there at the time, and it's known that it's there at the time. There's no accusation here, and this is all about, this is for entertainment purposes only. No one's guilty until proven guilty by whoever the authorities are, the police, whoever needs to say. This is for entertainment purpose only. So one of the things that I can't see her in the water. I just can't see it. Instead, I see a bit of a building. when I was in the gym about a week ago, because I've had Maddie and Nicola in my energy for quite some time, I saw something and I was like, I saw a rope and I was like, I feel this is Nicola, who's this for? And I looked up again and the rope was hanging and then there was a metal thing that was like that. I feel a rope is significant in this, whether it's a rope they say there was no marks on her body in terms of strangulation. Some people say there was a black eye. Some people say there was a couple of bruises, which is natural, apparently the inquest says natural. That's the other thing before I forget. From the 27th of Jan until the 3rd of February, family, friends, everyone was convinced and there was no proof of a drowning. Yet still, crime scene not cornered off or anything like that. Suddenly, towards the end, the inquest is accepted as an accidental drowning. I feel that is a persuasion from someone close, internally. They've had a discussion. People that are not aware of what's happened at all, even people that might be aware, have an inkling it doesn't sit well. They've had a discussion and there's been some convincing that it's been an accident, because it doesn't make sense to go from, I think it was the 2nd or 3rd of February, I saw a couple of, there was apparently, you know, on the news, either friends, family, sister, whoever. I know who exactly I saw, but I'm just selecting. Please come forward. There's absolutely no 100% that this is a drowning and we believe there's further to it. Then suddenly there's an acceptance in terms of the inquest. Maybe because it's been so painful, but I believe there's been someone who's actually convinced that we need to wrap this up, move on, allow her to rest in peace. And we're going to see, because I'm going to pull cards, but I'm just telling you intuitively what I'm also getting. There's something about a ring as well, so I don't know if there was a ring in the whole equation of something. I get the word auspicious, and I feel this tied in with the name. Remember, these are all characters, they're not people that necessarily are in this. And there's no pointing fingers here. These are just name and energy. So for example, I would expect a reader who read from my brother to say, you have Zane in your energy, or you have someone in your energy, because I would see him daily or whatever it is, but there's nothing there. So you understand what I mean? Like, or I might come up with Willow, there was a dog there. If I didn't know it, I'd say there's an energy of a dog. But it doesn't mean anything, it just means, oh, she was there. So Anne-Marie, and I get with that word auspicious, so maybe she's someone who's known, someone who's lucky, someone who's favourable or going through that at the moment, I don't know, but there's the word auspicious that comes in as well. There's something about Penny. Going back to the gym, that rope is significant, whether, like I said, it was used to strangle, tie, or it was, apparently there was, I'm not sure if the lead was attached to Willow and the harness was on the floor, why Willow was not tied to the bench but was tied with something else. I don't know if it's a rope or what it is. A rope is significant. I cannot see the drowning in the river. I just can't see it, but I know that there's people that have actually struggled to get the full story, I believe, from Nicola, and I think there's reasons behind that, but at the same time she does want to come forward. And I think, you know, I'm not really sure, but if you're following channeling and tarot readings, you might see that a lot of it is based on the tarot cards. I did see it that it's definitely in Lancashire, and maybe you're like, well, duh, but no, not duh in these situations. We don't have a clue on anything. I feel the right side of the body is more significant, might have been even more impacted. Like I said, I've felt my head for the past 2 days, but that could just be that I need to message this out. I felt my throat, okay? And I also, a few days ago, was thinking, I was taking 20 minutes, please tell me, show me what happened. Something about the chest. So this could be like, the word pounding is coming to me, to the chest, but there was also kind of like rashes, but I felt it could be scratches, some scratches, which they might have come up with. I mean, bruises and little arms and stuff on the arms. Maybe there was little scratches. I don't see bruises, but if there was like just understandable bruises from what would happen. But I got a thump on the right side of the lower stomach. Can you feel? I also, for some reason, got that there was a wound under the right armpit, just here. And so I don't know if there was something on her clothes in terms of blood, but the right side is significant. With the psychic that found her, I'm going to ask, was he called to the area, or was he just walking the dog? Because that's something else. And I get the energy of a small girl, I don't mean small, I mean like young girl. His name is Sophie, and I don't know if that's, I don't know her daughter's name. It was so hard. I think she's got 2 daughters. It was so hard to find her full date of birth and his date of birth. So Sophie, a young energy there coming through. That does not mean she knows anything, but it's an energy. Maybe, you know, there's a message there for the child. Everyone I mention is protected in this. This is no, like, if you see that I don't like to point fingers. Let's just go through some of the things, make sure I've covered some of the things. I mentioned about the external professionals investigated that, didn't find anything. I actually think that if he was interviewed, I think he was, what I understood is that he was actually taken off then. I think if he was interviewed, he's going to say that there's more to this. Something I didn't like is that, I'm not sure if she's a swimmer or not a swimmer, but I didn't like the mentioning at the inquest of holiday swimmer or at some stage. Like, why would you say that? You've already said she's drowned because it was so cold. It's shallow, yes, it's shallow, but she's so cold. Why are you saying about holiday swimmer? It doesn't really matter if she swam in a peddling pool or she could swim. You've said it's from it being really ice cold. So whether you're a swimmer or not, you won't be able to grasp your breath. But then someone decides to label her as a holiday swimmer. Is that another insult? There's no camera footage after the school on the bridge, apart from a couple of entrances, so we don't really know. There was 2 individuals that were apparently not investigated or looked out for, you know, that were reported to people that were covering themselves. The professional investigator I mentioned actually did his around the beginning of Feb. There wasn't anything there. And (16th of Feb) is where the police did that thing I mentioned about the conference, the news conference, and wondering why the public are not really knowing. But then there was a narrative that there's a tennis ball and she's probably gone in to get the tennis ball. There was a narrative about, you know, being high risk. I don't know if I've got it here, but I actually looked, because in all the pictures of the River Wire, I don't know if you've seen it, but it seems like there's a bench and then there's a small slope and then there's like the river, but it's actually a lot higher than that. And if you look at it, I don't think it's someone that would even take a risk, especially in winter. It's actually quite high up. There's the bench, then there's this bit of a slope, and then there's further like little steps going down. It's not like how I took a picture of it and I don't know if I can find it, but if you're interested in me trying to find it, I've taken it on it's a lot higher than the way you're seeing it, like a bench like this in front of you, and then there might be a little bit down, but when you look at it, it's a lot higher. I thought I'd just add that in. Spoken to 300 people, but not one saw a picture of, saw her, or there's no picture of her. Again, the biggest thing was, you know, nothing was cornered off as a crime scene. And it was concluded so fast that there was no third party involvement, more or less from the beginning, maybe. This one's a bit difficult. Like if you are passing in the park and you see a dog running, but then there's a phone that has a Teams call talking through it, and it's just left there, would you not take a look and try and say, hi, I think someone's left their phone or something, are you going to leave it on or whatever? I just can't see how work can't, or they might have done, what time she dropped off, if she did drop off, or did she stay on the Teams call? Again, gaps. Last seen around 9:10, I believe, in the upper field, by who? And the harness of the dog, like I mentioned. The other thing that I'd seen that I got was about 5 days ago, I'd gone towards the beach side, and I have not seen in a year a dead fish. And this spoke to me in many ways. One, there's something fishy about this. And if you're American watching this, fishy means something that's not making sense, something that doesn't sit well, something that's not straightforward, or, you know, that's what fishy would mean. I also see it as there's money involved. I also see it that I think some people or someone had thought Nicola's life was perfect, and she was like this prosperous thing as well, prosperous fish. I think there's a narrative around the fishermen, okay? I find it strange that none of them would come forward, but then was there fishermen? That's another thing. I get there is a fake narrative with it being a dead fish. There is a fake narrative and there is money involved. I actually noted what I was thinking about this, but that's what I know I was thinking. I also feel that there was an energy of, like, where I said that is quite prosperous. Maybe she was also auspicious. I also got the name Marshall, surname, middle name, first name. I don't know what it is about Marshall. Marshall, something about Marshall, or a Marshall, or even a Marshall, you know, because Marshall has meaning. I wonder what the name of Marshall as a name means. Oh my God, caretaker of horses. Caretaker of horses originates from Norman French. How interesting is that? It's also an old Scottish name meaning love of horses. How interesting is that when I mentioned about the numerology of the name is associated with number 5, which is symbol of changeability, adaptability of growth. I've mentioned the number 5, and you remember I mentioned in part 2 the spirit animal that I was getting for Nicola is the horse, because even though there might have been problems around, I didn't see her as allowing it to kill or sadden her even further. or even further. Why have I said even further? So it might have been quite heavy. There was a bit of a chapter, wasn't there? Whether it's an awakening, we all go through it at some stage. But basically, I'm taken back with that. So Marshall, love of horses, caretaker of horses, her spirit animal is horse. So this might also be related to, you know, what I was getting forward with her soul purpose, which I think a lot of it is, I'm going to ask the cards before I tell you, change, and the number 5, very interesting how that came through. Okay. By the way, also the garnet is a energy of sexual passion, desire, drive, and fidelity. The reason I say that is because I actually want to, on the last reading, there was the Empress card, and I said I felt 2 energies, and I won't be surprised if one of the females was pregnant or had been, or was another mother. Okay, and that includes Nicola, and I didn't want to say it because it might sound a bit off the, you might be like a bit off the hook because of, you know, the hormone replacement therapy. I was going to pull a card on it, but I've said it. That's all that needs to be said on that. I don't know if you caught that I've been saying, if you've seen Maddie's from part 1, before that I was saying that I wanted to do a reading on Britney Spears, and apparently now there's in the news about a divorce. I think there's going to be a lot more coming, but I should have done it when I called it. Okay, so let's just pull some cards and see what we get, okay? And the rest I'll cover as we go along.